all of you.
Last session for this track is on building scalable solutions for commerce, which would be addressed by Kalaiselvan P, who's the head of cloud engineering and enterprise architecture at Mindteck. Selvan has 16 years of IT-related experience in building software solutions, architecting, and application integration. He's a senior leader with core expertise in product development and delivery with organization development responsibilities. Kalaiselvan owns internal product strategy and development, architecture services, cloud-based IT services in smart energy, open ADR, and is responsible for cloud strategy, product re-engineering and migration to cloud, enabling SaaS solution development and offering cloud services in AWS, Azure, Google App Engine at Mindteck. He has worked with companies such as Sabre and IBM before coming on board Mindteck. I welcome Kalaiselvan on stage.
Very good evening, friends. I'm not hearing any response. Yeah, understandable. I know that you have gone through several sessions since this morning, and firstly, I would like to thank you all for coming on this weekend on this Saturday. And I know it's difficult, spending time out here listening all the sessions, and you would have gone through several other meetings so far. So I would keep it light, and I don't have too many slides. You should feel happy about that. And so I would take a little different approach in terms of the scalability, and out of the session that you have gone through so far, Ramakrishnan from eBay spoke about in length, about the scalability and how do they do stuff out there in their organizations from a product perspective and so on and so on. And I more take the approach of the solutioning part of it, because I come from a company called Mindteck. Those who are not familiar about the company, our company, we are based out in Enola. We are basically a product engineering service company. We operate in multiple domains, particularly smart energy, storage, and semiconductor and other related businesses. We are based out in Enola, and we have a development center in Bangalore, and we are aggressively expanding at this point. Those who like to apply, please forward your profile to me. So to begin with, I just wanted to set a context in terms of, I've seen the rest of these sessions as well, and it's quite depth, and it's talking about several coding practices, and I see that larger developer community out here, as I understand, and I just wanted to ensure that and I play it safe, okay, so that, and I try to cover from a scalability standpoint, one of the key aspects, or most of the key aspects that I have gone through, that I have practiced myself, part of my architecture experience in the past, and at the moment what I've been working with my customers in terms of providing the consulting, both in terms of enterprise architecture as well as the cloud, consulting. And objective, as you know, all that, we are here to share our experience and mutually learn. I hope you don't challenge me with difficult questions, but I still encourage you to ask me the questions. And if I cannot, and I will definitely take it offline with you and try and help you to understand what's your question and how do I can help you answer that question as well. Okay, so just to begin with, the largest e-commerce site in the world, as you know. So there are a number of sites, you would have come across, be it a Google or a Facebook or a Amazon or even eBay that we have seen. He's talking about 2 billion page views per day, so it's quite voluminous. This particular slide is out here to indicate two things. One, in terms of the scalability requirements these companies are going through. Okay, it's not like a simple web application where a bunch of users making a request, and then in turn it talks to the web server, and then it talks the database server behind the scene. Pretty much it talks about. I just walk you through quickly. Tag.com is one of the largest social networking site these days coming up. Under 1 million users, and 1,000 servers, and 5 billion page views. And look at their platform, what they operate on. They operate predominantly PHP web app, and they still use Java. You should feel happy for that. Memcached, which is another, the distributed caching techniques that they adopt. And if you look at YouTube, I'm sure most of you would have come across, and most of you would have watched a video, or most of you would have uploaded the videos to the YouTube. And it talks about the statistics standpoint that 100 million videos per day. 100 million videos per day. And you know that it's not a simple content. The videos is rich content in all sense, and it takes heavy bandwidth requirements. And with a market share of 43% in terms of the overall, the download. And the platform that they operate is Apache. They predominantly driven by Python, Linux, and the backend systems are driven by MySQL. And they also use a very, customized C compiler called Psycho, and they have a light HTTP for video purpose. Amazon.com, so which is one of the largest e-commerce sites. And in fact, they have revolutionized the way that, with the cloud, and they have transformed themselves from the e-commerce side to the next generation technology company, per se. So more than 55 million active customer accounts worldwide, and 1 million active retail partners worldwide. Amazing, customer base they have. Look at their platform, what they are sitting on, and Linux, Oracle as the backend, and C++, Perl, and Mason, Java, JBoss. Interestingly, they use JBoss still, and servlets, and they also use something called Dynamo, so which is NoSQL product. And Facebook. So I'm sure each one of you would have gone through, and I know that one of the largest social networking sites that's gaining the momentum of late, that it has 570 billion page views among us user base. And Facebook systems serve 1.2 million photos per second. This is actually excluding the CDN, in fact. And more than 25 billion pieces of content every month. It's a huge amount of data that that they deal with. You can imagine the amount of the scalability requirements that the organization would eventually face. And in terms of the platform, PHP, they still live with the PHP, and they are sitting on a Linux and MySQL, and they use a Memcached as a distribution caching techniques. What is interesting about this, something I want you to note, is that the world's largest websites out there are predominantly sitting on top of open source based applications. No offense to Microsoft developer out there, but indeed it's a fact. Okay, so Flickr sits on Microsoft, for your information. So I have shown you the the statistics in terms of the volume, okay, the customer base, the footprints, the page visit, and the user base, and so on and so on, just to give a scalability view. Now, from an e-commerce standpoint, and how this scalability is very critical, and where, which is very important for us to understand. And let me pause here and ask a question. And how many of you have, when you really code, okay, code for scalability? Can you raise your hand if anybody have done seriously that when you declare a variable and think that, oh look, I'm declaring this variable in such a way that this variable has to be scaled, available globally or locally or whatever that, or when you distribute that values that still you would be able to retrieve and use that across multiple cluster environments and so on. Have you ever designed, have you ever developed the code? Something. And that tells, a lot of feedback in terms of, where our focus is, especially when we, develop and design and architecture solutions. Traditionally, and these NFR requirements, whether it is a scalability or a high availability or a security or those kind of stuff, always left with an architects. So the developers always, he just develops a small set of requirements, and then within the scope, and he builds it, and then, make sure that a unit test, and then runs it. And when he really integrate it, and then when he really get to the live environment, and then see that the application fall apart just because the code that we have written doesn't scale. Okay, the question could come in is, okay, where do I start? So why should I bother about it? It is indeed an important question. And looking at this particular, and there was a study done sometime back, and wherein they say that across the, the e-commerce site, the typical e-commerce site, if you go, for instance, Amazon, if you look at it, and what do? You basically, the first thing you do is go and search, put in your search request, and then search for the products, basically. So we typically call it as a merchandising page. And then you do a product search. Once you do the product search, you do a product selection. And once you select the product and you buy, that's when the decision comes in. most of the companies struggle or build a strategy to bring more traffic to the website, and that's where they spend a lot of energy, especially. And if you look at it, the company that I worked with, Sabre, which is my previous company, which is a travel-based portal. I worked for a Travelocity, lastminute.com, and even in India, Travel Guru, and so on and so on. I was owning the distribution. My responsibility is to bring more traffic to my site, whether organic or inorganic, whatever the manner that I could bring in. So, but if you look at it, if I bring every under customer I bring to the site, it's not that every under customer would really purchase. There'll be only one customer, which is the conversion is 1:1 typically. So which means, and then so there will be a number of customers who come to the search and then get out. There will be bailing out of the the booking path, and there will be a lot of few customers get to the purchase point and then they make a purchase basically. Now, looking at the study, okay, it tells that out of these under customer or under percentage, in terms of the percentage, that 80% of the customer or the user base access the browse, and only 9% access the search, and only 2% does the registration, who are the subscribed user to the site, and then only 5% who really select the product, add to the shopping cart, and only 4% really, in the end, purchase the product. Which means, where should I put my scalability design or an architecture in terms of the effort and other investment? And not here, definitely here. And that's what this slide basically talks about. In fact, picking an example out of the 100,000 users, there are approximately 10,000 users adding items to the shopping cart. But originally, we invest a lot of the design focus as being traditionally on the tail end of it, where people make the money, because that's where it talks to a lot of backend system, whether it is a payment systems or somewhere the data has to be retrieved for in terms of the content servicing and so on and so on. So this is significant in that context. Okay, so looking at Mindteck and our experience in terms of building scalable solutions. Let me pick an example, or rather the kind of a engagement that we have gone through. There was a customer in UK. Okay, so Mindteck is quite strong in providing consulting in the space of the smart energy. Basically the smart energy devices, lighting, intelligent lighting, and photovoltaic cells, and so on and so on, which is M2M based solutions, machine-to-machine communications with the devices and then applications. We do a lot of monitoring and control. So there was a customer in UK. So basically, they installed the photovoltaic cells, the solar panels on the customer premises, and then they installed the equipments like meters and generation meters, so on and so on. Whatever the power that's being generated will be consumed. 50% will be consumed by the user, and the 50% can be sold, to the government, which they in turn will provide the rest of the world, basically. So it's a kind of a revenue model. Okay. So there's a customer who's a kind of a broker in between, who's helping the customers to build, the solar panels. And then they were looking for a solution because it's very important for them to monitor that particular devices for the, for the generation of the power on an ongoing basis. So they approached us and said, look, we have a game plan that next 20 years, our customer base will likely to grow up to 750K across the UK. And to begin with, we want a very simple solution. And it's something, it will look something like this. You have a user base, and then you have a generation meter, and then you have a, the radiation meter we call, which locally collect the sun, the lighting capacity. And then it sends over the GPRS, it collects the data, it has to collect the data behind the firewall. There should be an IT system which we need to develop. So this IT system should be capable of scaling over a period of time, not very immediate. And in fact, they are a very startup company, so they're very cost conscious. And they said, look, I have a system, I have a hardware already. I have a high-end blade server. Can you please build a solution? I don't want you to look at the capacity planning and other things. You just simply build a solution for us to be able to monitor and then control, and then be able to generate various kind of reports in with the highly aesthetic, user interactive based tools and stuff like this. We said, yes, okay, fine, we looked at it.